So welcome to UTOKing with Gregg. I'm here with Fanny Norlin. She's a coach and strategic consultant who, and I love this, is passionate about making the world become more alive. I just love that. I'm very, as a clinician, a lot of scholar, teacher, I'm like, hey, what's alive for you? I love that, the idea of engendering that. She got specialties in feminine leadership, strategy, emotional intelligence, organization. Our contact came, she was on Alexander Bard's crazy intellectual deep web and posted on masculine and feminine energies and offered a 2x2 matrix. And I was like, damn, that's super interesting. I looked into some of your stuff. We had a great conversation and I'm super excited to pick it up and share here with the little UTOK crowd. So welcome so much. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
So I like to kind of get just people's narratives, so people can get oriented. And how did you find your way into this world? And you can pick that up anywhere you want, but can you just sort of share a little bit of your story about how you got to where you are and what's alive for you and salient in that process?
Sure. It's also always a really hard question to answer, like where to start. I guess I've always been into existential and human questions since I was young.
Right.
And I guess in my teens, I got quite involved in like the whole climate crisis and was quite, so I probably mostly because my dad's an engineer, and I'm good at math and logic. So
right.
In Sweden, engineering is it's a good path. So I applied for engineering, and during my time at university, I got quite engaged in student organization and beyond, and through that work with just like leadership work, organizing things, I just found like a deep passion for, and I guess that kind of what I wasn't maybe using those words then, but as you said about this thing about being alive together, like I just really love to be in contexts that feel like true and connected, and where people are just like really and I had some like big experiences of that through and I also kind of continued on this climate kind of, I don't know, activism is a strong word because it wasn't like I joined Greenpeace and was like active, but it was still some kind of climate activism.
Okay.
And I founded Lund Sustainable Engineers, and kind of in that space felt that there was something that didn't resonate with me. And also this, I guess then the notion of that, like, we have so much advanced technology that would basically solve a lot of the climate issues, but we're not using them. So I was like, it seems like it's not the tech problem here. There's something deeper. So then I went and like deep dive into more adult development. I did my master's thesis on Keegan.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I was just like, oh, yeah, it sounds like a Keegan person to me.
So I did like a doubles master's in both engineering but also management. So I was able to write my master's in a more like a management approach.
Fascinating.
And then the years after, and then I also got in touch with Art of Hosting. I don't know if it's like a global community of how to kind of create like workshops and group processes on complex issues for a lot of people. So it's like a really fascinating practice, and that kind of introduced me to like complexity theory. And I mean, basically the whole, like, I don't know if I want to call it like teal living systems organism, but I mean, that was way before reinventing organizations came along, but kind of that whole systems thing.
No, complex adaptive system theory, dynamical, we're familiar. Well, many of the listeners will be familiar with that whole genre of ways of thinking about the world.
So, and then after university, I kind of really dove into that world and was like through a consultant working with got really interested in like how to create, more organic, self-organizing organizations. Worked as like a kind of, I guess, strategy management consultant, but in that. And then, and I kind of got like a bigger perspective on it. First, it was kind of business and organizations, and I got quite involved with like alter ego, which is, okay. I don't know if you were, it's this political conference that was in England.
Yeah, actually, I've heard of that. I definitely have heard of that, but I'm not aware of the ins and outs of it by any stretch.
So basically we went from like, kind of management business perspective to getting more deeper into like politics, and then eventually, it comes down to like religion and ideology. So just really digging into the and I guess quite intellectual aspects of those as well. And then I went to England, and again, like, was working with these really cool people in these like big projects, but still felt that there's something, that's not really working. Like, we're not getting there. Yep. And then I also had like a huge personal realization that a lot of my like save the world energy came from a place of fear in me. Okay. And went to Bali for a month and was supposed to work on this big project, and then it just, for different reasons, conflicts like kind of collapsed. So I found myself on Bali and had a ticket like 3 weeks later back. Wow. Like, what am I going to do? And that really led me into like a deep inner realization of like that I was trying to kind of fix the world out of fear, and just realize that like there's nothing to fix. Like, we're here. I mean, we could go deeper into that, but
it's a beautiful frame. That's often many people wake up to realizing that what's driving them, at least from like a clinical perspective, is this avoidant defense kind of thing, as opposed to this approach energy kind of thing. And that's a very different modes of being in the world, no doubt. So it's a fascinating little insight there, a big insight there that you had.
So then I decided that I was really in this like burnt out idealistic energy of like really trying to save the world and not making very much money, even though so I decided that I just wanted to basically move back to Sweden and make money and dance. Was my life. This is what I want to do with my life right now. And so I did, and it was so interesting because it felt like, I mean, just like 6 months later after I put this, like, I don't have to save the world, like when I had that realization, I took a course by Louisa Alsen that's now called Awakening Feminine Leadership.
Yes.
And that's when I got into, just really coming back into my body and coming back into, really inviting back like the feminine in me, and it was like, and I don't know why I said yes to that course, because it wasn't really anything I was thinking a lot about before I took it. But she was a friend of mine, and my body said yes. Like, there was something in me that really wanted to take it, and I did, and it was like I had this like strong intuitive sense. Like, I didn't understand it intellectually, but I just had this strong intuitive sense that there's like something in this feminine energy that is exactly like, is this thing that I've been feeling, like what is missing in all these so I was just I mean, both just for me, it just has a profound impact on my life. And then so the past 4 years I've been just
beautiful. Why don't we just pause there for a second, because that when I saw your posts and then when I talked to you, and actually I had a conversation with another philosopher of sort of feminine energy, focused on menstruation, very similar kind of thing in terms of just her awakening and a return to a core sense of embodiment with her body and the rhythm that she saw in herself through the natural cycle, and the absence of that in society, and the sort of the drama and trauma of that, and the need, if we're going to be successful in reclaiming and reorganizing, the fundamental need for this, you know, and obviously she has a slightly different version, but when I saw your version of it, I was like, yes, this is a fundamental missing piece that people are not getting about what needs to be grounding us across a wide variety of different domains. And so I think it's just absolutely a brilliant insight, and a powerful insight. And I mentioned it to a couple of my women friends, and they're like, no, I can feel that, you know, when I say it, you know, they're just like, I don't know what it is exactly, but I can all of a sudden orient towards it. So it's a beautiful thing, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to pause and say why I think this is, I wanted to talk to you and share this, and I really want to get this word out here because it's an unbelievably missing thing. I mean, you know, we'll get into your 2x2 frame, but this, what do we mean by the feminine? And the basic issue is, oh, you're a caring, nurturing person. Okay. And that's certainly what you hear. And in psychology, that's what you hear. There's a lot of truth to that, as we'll see, right? But it ain't the whole truth. And we need a much more holistic approach to understanding the archetype of feminine. And I think you're onto something. So
yeah. And I mean, and I mean, it just keeps unfolding more and more. And I'm exploring it as well now, and just something that, like, it's interesting with this exploration, because it's like I keep getting the same insights, but they just like keep getting deeper, and then I forget about them, and then I'm like, wow, and then I remember them again. So I think like the most recent insight like that is just how fundamentally different dimensions or animals or creatures the feminine and masculine are. And it came through me quite painfully, you know, also this 4x4 matrix that I showed, like people showed a lot of interest for it. And I was having a lot of calls, and I had this workshop, and people were, and I just realized that, like, little by little, I was drifting away from like it coming from an embodied place and just putting like a masculine abstraction on it. And I started getting these headaches, and I'm like, I've never had headaches before.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And then it was just like I was trying to explain the feminine through a masculine lens.
Yep.
And she won't have that.
Get back down to the ground. Right. So yeah, let's help people. Let's clue them in a little bit, even as we dance and embody this in our own process here. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, without getting too much abstraction, but how about we clue the listeners in a little bit about what some of your insights were? Maybe go to the 2x2 matrix and that. But I really look forward to elaborating and dialoguing with you about masculine and feminine. We can jump over to UTOK a little bit and come back, and we can, you know, weave this together, because I think that this is I think there's a lot of synergy here. But can you share some of those insights so that people can get a grip on some of what you were feeling, seeing, doing, the course you took, any particular insights there, or how you then got to the 2x2 matrix and what that is? I'm in this interesting place of, like, recently having this realization, and I don't feel as, like, clear as I can be, but I think that's also perfect, because that's kind of the that's kind of the point some of the time, huh?
I'll start somewhere, and then we can so yeah, I think one way of framing it that I think, at least in my body, makes a lot of sense in mind, is that the masculine is about, like, evolution and growth, and, like, the masculine kind of, if you take a masculine lens on, like, life, it's this evolution into ever more complexity. So like if you look at self-emergence, it's this moving of like, we have a stable phase and then we go into chaos, and then from that emerges a more complex stage, and then it's just this.
Somebody get a tree of knowledge picture going here.
So that would be like, so that's a masculine way of looking at the world, and it's brilliant and so useful and so needed, and and it's masculine. So then the feminine lens, which is a lot more difficult to explain since we're so used to talking about everything in a masculine way. But if I would try, one way of seeing it is the feminine is cyclical. So the feminine doesn't care about like, where we're going, or like what the feminine cares about is being true and like fully embodying the place in the cycle that we are. And the feminine lens is that there is no growth. There's only an ever return to the same. So it's all a life, death, life cycle. Like there's everything, everything just, so it's this, it's the cycle of like the death, the void, and from there emerges life, and then it matures, and then it needs help dying, and then goes back into the void, and that's just I
love that. That's a yin yang reality. I love it. Yeah, beautiful.
So what I see right now, like one of the, like this core thing missing is, in a sense, that is our fear of death. So there's so many ways I could say this, but like if you have a system where like the matriarchy and the patriarchy are in deep respect of each other and are in service of each other, there's going to be like the masculine that is holding the evolution and holding the direction and holding us moving forward, and then there is going to be the feminine that makes sure that we're like honoring the cycle of life. And as I see it, I think that the feminine, we all in our core, we're all kind of, when we're not in fear of death, when we're actually, so in order to live, we have to fully understand and meet that we're all gonna die, like that impermanence is the only. So when we're actually alive and living in this, not living in fear of death, but actually fully living, then I think what like the feminine in that state naturally serves is being the channel for this life force. And how the feminine is that the feminine has the qualities of being able to stand in the void, to stand and like source the life force from there.
Right.
And what the mass, and so that's and that ability is so suppressed in us because there's such a fear of this void, and there's such a fear of nature, there's such a fear of this feminine life force, because it's deep, it's the unknown, it's something that we cannot control, it's something that we cannot like come in with mankind and build up, like it's a complete surrender, and that's what we're most afraid of. So we need, the feminine needs to come back to that place of sourcing that life force, and then we need a masculine who, and the masculine, when the masculine is fully alive and in this state, is like receives this life, like gets to be alive by serving the life force.
Right.
So the feminine is in service of the life force by being a channel for it, and the masculine is in service of the life force by holding space for the feminine.
Right. And it has to return back to it. That's what people, the progression I think of like the Enlightenment and its propositional knowledge just fails to appreciate.
And the thing is, it's not that the cyclical perspective is better than the mass, like it's not the feminine is not, it's just they need to dance together.
They need each other.
And that's the thing. Like, so it goes back to this fear of death. It's the feminine, like the feminine is deeply afraid of being so dependent of the masculine, and the masculine is deeply afraid of being so dependent on the feminine. That's like the core like fear. And we are, you know, it's one way I like looking at it is that like without the masculine we can't survive, but without the feminine we can't thrive.
Love it. So yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we get this wrong, don't we? we gotta definitely put this healthy opponent process in dialectical relation in a way that's a lot more conducive to effective dancing between these domains in a way, you know, that's what I'm feeling from your stuff. And I certainly see that throughout so many different phases of our social role relations. It's definitely, we created an awkward fucking dance.
Yeah. And like a central aspect or a core aspect of this is the female sexuality, so women's sexuality, because it is like our sexuality is so linked to our ability to stand in this void, to source this life force. Like it's so intertwined, and that's what I see. Like even in most women's movements, that most women's movements are not like what do you call, they're also kind of shutting down female sexuality. So like, I mean, what I've seen happen is, so when we kind of went into the agricultural age and started kind of domesticating nature, it was this trying to control, and so men to put ourselves above nature. So we kind of, you know, that, you know, the whole Christian church and everything that was sexuality and everything that was human was seen as something below, or, and then there's been a women's movement that has, you know, in all its right, you know, tried to create this equality between men and women, but rather than to actually reclaim female sexuality as the most powerful and sacred thing we have, the women's movement is rather taken even more distance from it, because there's still in both men and women this, you know, deep coding that this sexuality is something that we should you know, put ourselves above.
I saw some place where you're describing that sexual energy in terms of three things. I heard it was juicy, empowered, and inner directed. Is that a characterization that you embrace and share then in relationship to that?
That's my teacher, Louisa Alcén.
Okay.
That's her like categorization. Yeah. So this course that I took with Louisa, what she it's like a 6-week course where you're basically completely embedded in this feminine lens. And as you say, it's juicy and empowered. So it's getting in touch with our vaginas, with our sexuality, with our sensuality, with because that creates so much power for women. Like being in touch with our bodies and our sexual energy, and like it's what get us in touch with our life force. And it's just it's this power that enables us to, you know, to both dance with men, but also to actually have like full integrity. That's not coming from fear, but that's coming from a knowledge of like how deeply powerful I am.
Totally.
And the thing, you know, we speak about the feminine, you know, like even if you know, if I'm cyclical and I have my menstrual cycle, and it's like, it's not like it's shifting the lens of like, oh, she's crying and emotional because she's on a menstrual cycle. It's like she's crying and emotional because she's in touch with life.
Right.
Like, and it has to start with me. Like I have to do that with myself as a woman. And so this feminine power, Louisa, I love one thing she talks about is that it's like, really she's mentioned it once, but like that it's like a panther, like a black panther in the room. So it's like this panther isn't like rah or like screaming at people or like, but it's just there, and everybody in the room knows that like the Black Panther has the power in this room right now.
Yeah.
And that's like that feminine energy that is just it's just so clear, and it's so owning our own sacredness and our own like that it's just like and I mean there's so many men that really respect that and really miss that. Like it's
totally. It's a fundamental life-giving resource. I mean, it's the source. So, and we ruined that. And for many horticultural societies for tens of thousands of years, the most common artifacts, the Venus figure, the ultimate, I mean, that would wrap together the embodiment of matriarchal care, the matriarchal tradition, the older and embodiment of the health, whether it's a pregnant and manifestation of that core. I mean, it just, and now, so anyway.
Because it's so tricky and like it's so complicated to talk about these things. Like it's complex because when we're talking about the feminine, like again, it's so easy to unconsciously be looking at it through this masculine lens, and also be looking at it through a lens where we're actually not honoring the feminine. So I mean, there's and it's the whole like perpetrator victim. Like it's so easy to like out of fear, like, oh, like all men are violent and barbaric, and like, but what that energy creates is that like, okay, men are evil and aggressive, and like, and women are these like innocent saints, but also vulnerable.
Yeah,
like
weak victim.
And so that's just like that's a really bad view on women. Like to have that, even if you're doing it for the cause of women, or like all those bad men, it's like it's so disempowering. But like, and I'm not saying it's easy. Like I completely understand. And then there's like this other, this discourse of saying what you were saying in the beginning, that the feminine is like soft and receiving and nurturing. And like it is, but I'm so aware that when we're speaking of the feminine like that, we're actually judging it as something weaker, because we have like, I very seldom see like even like men and women that are like, oh, this company needs to become more feminine. They're actually like, it's, I don't know how to, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah, no, it softens and weakens, and it's not grounded in its source. It doesn't afford, it's sort of a weak, kind version of man, in a awkward, ungrounded sense, and therefore it doesn't position itself.
Exactly. We're explaining like ungrounded men when we're talking about the feminine, and like we need, and like when I speak about, and Louise also says that like awakening the feminine and honoring the masculine. Like, so it's the feminines, we remember it's like and like I'm really into like business and management, and I see, especially in Sweden in the business world, this talk about like, and especially that like men have to be more feminine, and like I really don't agree with that. I think that men have to be more receptive masculine, and that's not being feminine. Right. That's being very masculine. Like there's a masculine trait to that is this like ego. I don't want to say ego free, because that sounds very like perfectionist, but like just connected, in touch, holding, honoring, in service, just like standing their ground, and just like making space for the feminine to step into the void and source this life force. Like that's so much more what is needed.
I can feel that energy in me. I know that energy. Actually, why don't we give the folks the four, if you're still operating from the four terms for the, the 2x2 matrix. So for the two women, you have two terms, and then you have two terms for men, so people can get a frame for this.
Yeah. It's interesting. My headache kind of comes back from like bringing that model in. So there's something.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I just.
Me, I'm a damn man trying to like, hey, let's see if we can organize this and get clear on our analytics.
Yeah, I do want some, but and also, there's something again, as I said, like with that way of looking at it that makes it like overly like kind of abstract and masculine. But I guess what I can do is kind of what feels more true is to kind of share how I see like
perfect
a creative process or like the dance between the masculine and the feminine.
Beautiful.
Because I think I can also, so just to not, this isn't a mystery. So I created a 4x4 model with two masculine polarities and two feminine polarities. But what I realize is when you put them in the same model like that, you're not acknowledging the fact that they're completely different dimensions. Like you can't really put them in the same model because then you're either going to be explaining the masculine from a feminine lens or the feminine from a masculine lens, all right. which maybe we have to do to be able to work with something, but yeah.
Let's just go with what's alive for you now. So where's it flowing now?
so what I see is that, so maybe first speak from it from kind of looking from the feminine, and then maybe speak from it looking from the masculine. So if you start with the feminine, like every creative cycle, it's cyclical, so you can start wherever in the cycle, but like, first it's impossible to say what is first, but if we start with, if you look at the cycle, it's like the seasons is a very like easy way to understand. So there's winter and death, where everything is dying, and then from that arises spring in life, and then summer is maturity, and then autumn is again like going back into death. So what I see is needed, like if you take it in like a business context, or we need to like have organizations, and we need to have people. So we need we've kind of, say this. As a society, it's kind of in the death and the void, it's like complete separation. It's completely letting go of everything we know. And in the more like summer autumn phase, it's kind of like maturing and bringing together and kind of the union. And we're so much more prone to the union aspect. It feels so much more safe and tangible. And so from a feminine aspect, what I really see is needed is like women who are in touch with their bodies and their sexual energy, because it's this sexual energy that allows us to stand in this void, in the unknown, and it's not being in service of anybody. It's only being. Like as soon as you're trying to have an outcome, trying to help somebody, trying to serve a business, trying to like, then you're not there. So it's just completely falling into your body, falling into your own, just following this flow of the sexual energy. And what the feminine needs there is a masculine that is really just holding space for that. So like pushing all, the shareholders away, and like, don't mess with this woman right now. Like,
circle the wagons.
Just like hold and hold and hold, and like not so that this feminine doesn't have to, be in deadlines, and like, because like that energy is just not gonna, it's like when you're birthing a child, like it's not you're gonna be standing there with like KPIs over the woman.
Checklist.
Okay,
no.
How is this childbirthing going?
Right. We're on a schedule here. This is a linear process. Shut the fuck up.
And then as the child or the project or this energy is born, there's this yeah, it needs to be nurtured and blah, blah, blah. And then what also, so we go through its maturity phase. And I think like that's not something that works quite well, that phase. I'm not worried for that phase. But then what I also see is that in the autumn, going back into the void, there's such an important role. And this is like quite a new realization for the matriarch who just like stands and because looking from a masculine lens, what is going to be happening in this process is that like if there's this grounded masculine that is really like receiving, and it's like, okay, I've received the mission, from the void, I've received the mission, and it's the masculine that is going to understand what the mission is. That's also part of this holding. It's not only holding, it's also making sense of like, so what does this mean, so that the masculine can send out its like troops, like the masculine doing like and building. And when that is done, and when it's built, like when then we need the matriarch that stands there and like, okay, men, it's time to go back into the void, and like and both to be able to do this process, we need like deep respect for both the masculine and the feminine. Like both are really, really needed to create 100%. Life in this way. And it's such, and we need a more efficient way to create life if we're going to sustain life for like all the people that are on this planet. Like
Love it. So here's I'll drop into some unified theory stuff for just a sec to help folks situate why I'm so excited about this. Okay. And why it lines up. So in culture, we have this idea of biology versus society, or nature versus nurture. Okay. In fact, many psychology texts, 101, the most popular 101 text says, oh, psychology's first question and most important is nature versus nurture. Okay. That's it. So that's still being taught. My kid just took a Psych 101 class and that was the damn question. Okay. Unified theory hates that. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And the reason is because it turns what are three different clusters of variables into two. And if you turn three different clusters of variables into two, you're screwed in actually making comprehensive sense out of what's going on. And people know, that listen to this will know, but I'll just be clear. So out of matter comes life, okay? The dimension of biology. Okay, so the dimension of biology are things like chromosomes and cells and organ systems. It exists in plants, okay? And you get biological sex, differentiation in plants. Sexual reproduction happens before there are animals, and you have a biological layer of sexuality, okay? Then what happens is animals come along, and there's sexual differentiation. But what animals are very different in is that they're behavioral investment systems. They have energy economic systems that are designed to expend work energy in particular patterns, which is over and above the plant level, just like plant levels over and above the matter level. So there's a whole nother level. When you're watching bees fly around plants, they're behaving in terms of complex adaptive systems in a fundamentally higher order of space-time complexity. Okay. So then the question is, what are the channeled energies of that behavioral investment system? Well, in sexual reproducing animal systems, two massive channels begin to emerge, okay? Because there's a set of problems, investment problems, that are associated with being male or female. There are different kinds of survival reproductive strategies, and that are, there's one of the most powerful theories in evolutionary sort of behavioral ecology or whatever, it's called parental investment theory. Parental investment theory is, hey, if there's a heavily investing sex in the offspring, that investment is the limiting resource that the other sex then competes for to try to control. Okay, and so you see this across the whole. And by the way, it's not just a genetic in the sense that there are seahorses, for example. Male seahorses are actually the more investing sex, because actually the female drops the eggs, the male inseminates the eggs, and then has to defend the eggs. So it's actually the time and investment to defend the egg, okay, actually is more costly and problematic for the male than the female to spend the eggs. Well, what happens is actually females then start competing for access to defensive males in that context, okay? Because the investment energy patterns for the process of reproduction is what then drives these energy flows, Okay. And that's then at the animal mental level. All right. And that's different than the life level. And for us humans, we can see two layers of animal mental. One's your animal embodiment. This is like safety, territory, sex, okay, and reproduction. And then we're primates that are this very, very relational system, okay? So we're tracking each other very, very carefully. Other animals, don't necessarily do it, but super social primates like us, we have these tendencies for power and love and freedom, tracking our social influence and status. And this is all in the self-other matrix dynamics. And again, you're going to have different fundamental patterns for men and women in self-other calculation. Both of these are mental energy structures, okay? And then finally we become persons. Persons justify shit in terms of social roles and beliefs and values, all this other stuff. And we invent culture 50,000 years ago. And then we built all these belief value systems about, and this way you get social construction of reality. So the social construction of gender as justified roles is up here. Masculine, feminine energy is behavioral investment systems here, and then biology in terms of genes and cells and organ systems down here. It's crystal clear the three different dimensions. I mean, biopsychosocial is unbelievably commonsensical, and yet we divide this goddamn issue into there's two variables. Well, how can we possibly make sense out of this issue if we're operating the most simplistic way, creating a two variable model out of something that's crystal clear to be three fundamentally different variables? And then we're going to ask people, populists, trying to make sense out of this in these complex times. It sucks, and it creates a hell of a lot of confusion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really complex. And I guess, and again, the reason, maybe that's oversimplifying, but to me, it comes back to this, fear of death and fear of vulnerability and fear of, men being dependent on women and women being dependent on men. And again, this whole, this drive to say that we're, fundamentally, biologically exactly the same is only important if you don't believe that the feminine and masculine are important as they are, that they're it's to have men are exactly like women are exactly like men. My question would be why do you want that to be true? What's it's only important for that to be true if you really don't believe that women are powerful and capable and amazing beings as women,
Totally. I mean, it's just to me, the motive is pretty clear. The patriarchy, there has been an enormous amount of oppression. And then the fear is that, well, if there are differences, then systems of justification hierarchically arranged will utilize those to legitimize inequalities. I don't know what those are. I don't know what they can be. So I'm going to morally just say there can be no differences. So the deductive conclusion is equality. And voila, let's go around and talk about oppression and any differences, this socially constructed reality. That's the basic issue, what's going on. And obviously it's well-intentioned, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's just, if you cannot impute a wishful, simplistic notion on the world and then actually expect it to go, when you try to control the world, into that thing, when the world's actually made up of totally different boxes than you're trying to put it in, you're not going to get good outcomes. So from a masculine holding perspective, I want the organized structure so we can actually ground the process. So that's what I'm always interested in. What the fuck is the actual analytic structure? Put the things in the boxes and then let the growth happen in effective structure and relationship to that. So, and I'm really frustrated that we didn't create the right architecture for the embodied growth. And that's why I want to talk to you, because you see the embodied growth aspect, and we sync this up, we'll be in a much better place.
Yeah, it's, and what I see happening right now in the world is that so there's this and for in a country in Sweden, there's a really strong feminism that has really taken a lot of ground and is really being heard, and really and there's this feeling that finally women are taking their place and all of this. But then it's, as again, I see issues in it. So it's coming from this place of we can also be men. It's really not feminine. It's not honoring female sexuality. So there's all these, like, it's actually not allowing women to thrive in our bodies. And there's this kind of a lot of aggression towards men and the masculine. Which is, and then we're kind of, instead of, and I see, this fear of being dependent on men. We're instead, creating a society where we were saying we don't need men, kind of. So it's, the whole like social system of Sweden where you actually, where women are very independent, but the world that we're becoming independent in, and the world we're becoming CEOs of, and the world where we're becoming the high politicians in, is a sinking ship. Which is like, it like breaks my heart. Like, it's because the thing is, like, all the money and the power right now is going into like Web 3.0 and like the blockchain world and crypto and it's exploding and it's growing so quickly. And like, it's not going to matter if you become CEO of a bank when like crypto comes. And I'm not saying this black and white, like there's like, I can't foresee the future, but I just see this. And what I see is happening is that in this, if you call it, like the internet, the tech world, it's so male dominated. It's so male dominated, of course, because the majority of the women are like fighting the fight on this sinking ship, and also being really aggressive towards men there's a lot of stuff has gone down.
I hear it. I can.
But like, what is happening is that like, this new, we're basically building the internet. We're setting the architecture of the internet right now, and it's being done without access to this feminine life force.
Totally.
So it's this. I mean, it's brilliant. Like, the minds behind like blockchain and crypto, like there is like brilliant masculine forces happening there, and then there's shadows and blah blah blah. But like, the thing is, it doesn't matter how brilliantly masculine it is if it's not in service of this, back to what I was saying, like, if it's not sourcing from the feminine life or sourcing from this void, we're only going to be like, we per definition can't create anything new, because you can only create what you already know. And it is the feminine that kind of, enables something truly new and like a truly new level of complexity to emerge. So it's like, like the women are on the sinking ship and the men are in this like world by themselves, and both worlds are going to be really shitty. Like, totally.
I mean, again, I'll use just sort of put this in tree of knowledge, the stacks of the matter, life, mind culture. Okay. And then once I built the matter, life, mind culture cones, that was in 1997. I had this sort of flash of insight. And then about 6 months later, I'm like, what the fuck are these cones? What is life? What is mind? What is matter? I mean, culture out of matter. And then it dawned on me over, I don't remember exactly, a year or so. It's like, actually, you know what these things really are? There's these complex adaptive planes of existence, okay, that emerge as a function of information processing, say within a cell, and communication between cells that then create a network, all right? And then that's actually the same thing in the nervous system. So nervous systems network cells together, creating information processing. You get animal to animal communication. Okay. Then you get linguistic propositional information processing and language-based communication to create a culture person plane of existence. So each one of them is an emergent complex adaptive plane that's mediated by an information processing communication network. Okay. And those are the big emergences. So there's lots of little emergences inside each one of the dimensions. There's a lot of little emergences. You get a qualitative fucking emergence, all right, when all of a sudden you get a new information processing system and communication network that can build a complex adaptive plane. All right. So once you start with that and you're like, okay, there's 1 life, 2 mind, 3 culture, then you're like, would there be a 4th one? Okay, what the fuck comes next? Okay. So in 1998, I'm like, or 1999, I'm like, as soon as I had that 1, 2, 3, hey, so you look then back at the 20th century, right? And you're like, hey, was it an emerging information processing network that was connecting communication systems together at a higher order of complexification? I don't know. Did anybody see anything? You know, like, holy fuck. We're turning our material systems into these artificial intelligence systems. We're networking them together in the internet. We got artificial interface systems. This is going to explode into the digital metaverse in the 21st century. And that's called the fifth joint point. Okay. So we're channeling through the fifth joint point. And then the issue is, oh my God, given the techno stack of modernity into then the post-modernity chaotic fragmented hell, and where we are in the deep, the tall, thin stack of technology relative to Mother Earth, then the basic issue is you've got a tall, fucking thin stack of hyper analytic shit going on that's not grounded in reality. And we actually need a wisdom stack that organizes this digital metaphors down into the human lived experience, into the animal experience, into the organismic experience of Mother Earth. And if we don't get that fucking wisdom stack correct, we're doomed. And so the whole idea that we actually need a wisdom stack that sources down to the life force, which of course then is the heart of the feminine sexual energy structure. That's the whole, you're like, Jesus, we don't do that right, we're going to be fucked. So anyway, that's my, that's again, my sort of architectural masculine going, hey, we gotta change this equation or else we're in deep trouble. We gotta find people that get this and embody it.
I love this. I love this conversation, Greg, because it's also like, so just like share what's happening in my body and my system right now is that you know, intellectually I can just barely follow, like, but I can follow and I understand what you're saying. And I realize this, like, you know, also this like, oh, like I have to understand, I have to, you know, this, which is fine. And I can kind of let go of that. But it also makes me realize that like, we need, so it's like, so you know, the whole UTOK, like it is a very masculine lens and it's a brilliant masculine lens. And it kind of comes to the realization that like, so we need this emergence, you know, to the fifth level where you're talking about. Right. And the thing is that when we think, like when we use this complex adaptive thinking and thinking of that, like, you know, it is implicit that like the fifth level is better than the fourth level. Like there is a masculine hierarchy in it. And the issue is that there is no hierarchy in the feminine. Right. So like, and it's not to, like, I love hierarchy, like, and like hierarchy is so needed. Like I'm not, and again, I'm not, but what I'm saying is that like this discourse or this way of like, kind of the space that we have right now, like I, as a woman, or if I'm representing the feminine, let's say in this, like I have to know when to like let you do your architecting, like, and then, but then also know when to like really step in with like the feminine. And it's not about like, that's bad, you can't do that, but it's about, you know, tapping into the feminine, because if you're still in that masculine lens of like, this is better than that, blah, blah, like there's a hierarchy, then you're not going to be able to enter the void. Totally. Because that's to enter, because the shadow side of, you know, the whole developmental thinking and totally. Integral theory is that this sense of evolution or going higher and higher complexity, which from a masculine lens is true, but it creates like an ego sense of evolving or being better than blah, 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 which really doesn't work with the feminine. And so that's what's so interesting. Like there's so few women in this intellectual space, because this, yeah, I don't know if I'm making like,
you make it no, I'm let's just hold that. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I'll say about UTOK to know, okay, is that it starts actually with the feminine care. Okay, so it starts with the problem of psychotherapy. So I like tell people, What I don't have is I don't have the archetypal feminine body energy. That's what I miss. But I have archetypal heart care. I'm structured this way. So I'm a psychotherapist. The first thing I see, if I see a wounded individual, my first inclination is essentially a maternal holding environment. Okay. Paternal, maternal, whatever. But it's basically, oh my God, somebody's suffering. And I want to do what I can. And then I want to be the best. Then it's like, well, I want to be the best psychological doctor to hold the suffering, to both honor the suffering and then be the best that I can to afford the shift into well-being and to maximize well-being outcome. So then I ask my physicist engineering mind, my masculine head, to basically, okay, solve that fucking problem. Okay, give me the architecture so that my heart can be placed in relation and do the maximized effective care. And then I'll feel it when I'm with people in the participatory embodiment, but then I'll know in my justification that, yeah, I did the best I can engineering architectural wise. So that's the origin of UTOK, is the problem of psychotherapy, which then I asked my engineering mind to say, well, actually solve it through the science of psychology. I realized the science of psychology is fucked. It's completely disorganized. And then I backed way the hell up and realized that, well, it's actually all in the philosophy of science and everything else. We have a fundamental problem in our entire knowledge structure. And you build UTOK to address that, solves the problem of psychology, organizes psychotherapy, and then allows that process to then return. And this is why I'm actually seeking the feminine, because the feminine embodiment is the holding environment for the ground of it.
Yeah, and what comes to me from hearing you share that is also like something that you know, in a transformation process, like what is needed probably first is this like care and holding, because it's usually a process of grief, of like something dying. So you know, you need to hold that respectively or respectfully, or you know, not respect, but like that's what's needed to because it's a scary thing to let something die, or you know, which is like one aspect of the feminine. But then what happens after the grieving? Like what guidance does the feminine have, like for, okay, I've grieved, like what now? And that's like not just descending into the void and then there's just like it's like fully you know being there. And that's like where the sexual energy comes in, of like it's yeah, and that's the thing. It's like we don't have any guidance in it, and that's again because like culturally it's so okay for women to be small and like but we're really scared of, men and women, of this again, this feminine force. Yes. Because it is, yeah, because we can't control it. But what we need is something we can't control, because that's the unknown, and that's what actually will lead to the emergence, you know, like, so, yeah, that's the
paradox that we have to find the right balance around. It's lovely. So, when you guide people, you're in your workshops or whatever, can you share a little bit about what you guide people to through the process, so people can get a sense of like, hey, how do I get in touch with this thing?
So I've guided women a little bit, but I'm kind of like exploring what my role is in that. But I can share like the practices from Louisa's course.
Totally. Yeah, whatever.
So what is the, so there's it's a lot about coming into the body. So like, yeah, I guess it's that process of like really like leaning back, relaxing, coming into your body, really like into your body. And then I mean, it's hard to explain. Okay, and then there's there's practices around like sensuality, of really surrounding yourself with beauty, of really feeling into, you know, what is your sensuality, what does your sensuality look like. There's a lot about like really feeling into your longing and your desires. So like, I mean, it's, so Louisa talks about going from burnt out idealists to turned on pragmatics.
Ah,
I love.
I love that. That activated me immediately. I love that. So yeah, say a little bit about
that. So it's really this thing of like reconditioning our whole like system of like always trying to, who can I serve? How can I be of service? How can I support? How can I, and just really land into your own body and like let life emerge from within. So like what and the whole practice is like, what am I longing for? What turns me on? What you know, like what is here? What is alive in me? What is true to me? Totally. So there's this inquiry practice, which is like a practice where you really from the diamond approach, which Louisa is a part of. So it's this of really through your body finding, just going deeper and deeper into like what is true, what is true, what is true, what is true for me. And then and getting in touch with and like doing, you know, different tantric and other practices to really like get in touch with this sexual energy, because this sexual energy is such a power source for women. Like it's an endless source. Like it doesn't, the more we get in touch with it and the more we get in touch with other women who are also in touch with it, it just like grows. And it's just so it's really difficult to explain. And it's also people, so I speak about like feminine leadership, so they're like, okay, so what's the role for somebody in feminine leadership, and like what's the outcome and what do you do? And like it's really not about like doing, it's really about being from another place. And what helps you to be from that other place is coming back to your body, you know, coming back to your sexual energy. But also like, I mean, Louisa tells so many beautiful stories and like framings that allows us to reclaim what the feminine is, and like a different story of the feminine, which I also think is a very important part of this, of a feminine story.
So, I'll put that in, you know, just how I relate to that in terms of my own development and theory and framing and shifting into sort of what I call the vertical stack of the psyche. Okay. So for me, based on how I was trained and what I saw, I basically saw the person primate distinction very early in my work. Okay. So I saw us as primates, saw us as persons, saw us as justifying persons navigating a primate world. And then I saw the primate world through the relationship process, the self-other relationship process. And I actually I built a thing called the influence matrix. Okay. And that tracks the ways in which we operate in the relational world arena as social primates. Okay. And that gives rise to a very clear difference between what's called other over self strategies on one side. Okay. And that's affiliative and dependent and submissive, our guilt, love, shame, okay, anxiety and dependency needs. All right. Versus the other side, which is dominance, autonomy, hostility, characterized by anger, pride, you know, defensive rejection and counterdependence. Okay. Now, when you look at the genders on the social role, you put a pretty archetypal gender relational pattern. Okay. I've worked in counseling centers and I've worked in, you know, individuals who are a lot of anxious females worrying about dependency kinds of dynamics. I've also worked in prison. Okay. Where if you send any type of guilt, shame, all of a sudden you're a bitch. Okay. And brutal male prison. So I know what those archetypes look like, blah, blah, blah. But here's what I missed. Okay. Or what and over the last 5 years, I then come see underneath that primate layer is the animal embodiment layer itself. Okay. The fundamental, more fundamental gut loin layer. So this is the heart. There's a gut loin embodiment layer. Okay. That layers underneath that. And I didn't pay much attention to that at all in my early work. So now I'm like, oh, it's animal body into social primate is the whole stack here, and then head and justifying and spirit. But anyway, it's like, so I didn't, I'm pretty sophisticated, and I missed the entire feminine energy embodiment dynamic. After a hell of a lot of study and all this other stuff, I mean, it's like 5 years ago. It's like, oh wait, yes, that whole loin thing.
But it's so deeply pushed into the corner.
But that's listen up, folks, because it's sort of like, if I only got this like 5 years ago, this thing's buried. I mean, it's unbelievably buried, right? And we just deny it, and we control it. We pretend it's not there. We're afraid of it. It's horrifying, and we have to reclaim it. Like,
it's so fucking amazing to reclaim it. It's so. There's so much life there. There's so much life there. God. There's so much truth. There's so much. There's so much beauty. There's so much it's just so. Yeah.
That's all I need to say, folks. I love that. Yeah.
And that's also, Louisa talks about, the burnout idealist to the turn on pragmatic.
Okay, yeah, we start.
It also brings kind of back to what I started to share about, that I realized that I was trying to save the world, and then realized that because it's this this feminine, embodied sexual root energy that we're talking about. It's also like, I just really have to surrender into it. I can't like, okay, now I want to use it for this, or now I want to use it to save the world, or now I want to, like, it's just, I'm not in control of it. Like, it's just there. And it's also this thing of like, instead of trying to like be all these things and be the smart person, but like when I just lean into it and let it like, then I become so much more powerful and actually achieve all those things that I was trying to achieve, but not because I was trying to achieve them. And it's really hard to explain, but I think that's like such a shift for women. And also something that came to me like recently of this desperate, this like trying. So I came into the field of like one of these.
Actually, can I pause you just for a sec? Okay, because I want to also, I just need to say, so, I mean, I just want you to know that's very alluring. Okay, from the alluring, like desirable and honorable, and like, I want to put that up on a pedestal and protect it and honor it and all of that. So the energy that gives in me and my structure is like, oh my God, I want to elevate and protect that as sacred. Okay. So that to me, when we're talking about the kind of dance between energies, that's why I wanted to bring that in. So as you do that, I just check my body, and it's like, I want to honor that.
And that's what happens. Like when we women step into that, then men come and like, how can I serve you? Which is amazing. And then like when that happens, to not go back to my like default independent Swedish woman of like, how dare you? I can like yes, like you don't have to serve me. Like I'm fine with, but like I'd love for you to serve me. It's so beautiful between men and women when we start doing that. And I've had experiences of that. They're just so healing and nourishing and so full of life for both the feminine and the masculine. I think the masculine is so longing to serve this feminine.
Totally. That's what I wanted to pause and be like, just check my body. And that's what it does. And if you get that reciprocal yin yang, right?
I mean, imagine being at a workplace that had that dynamic. And like, I felt it. Like I worked at a quite big e-commerce, and I built my own team, and we started get that dance going, and it's so beautiful. And it's fucking like so productive and efficient, and like it's all the things that the masculine lens, also the masculine management lens wants. But just if you really dare to let this dance unfold, you're gonna get better results than, and that's what I love about this. It's also, it's really not like an underdog perspective. It's like, it's so fucking potent from both a feminine and a masculine lens. Like, even if you want, you know, business results, like this is what can create business results beyond your imagination.
It's the right relation of is and ought between the masculine and feminine. I mean, that's, you know, right? I mean, you and then the body will feel it. You know, that's the wisdom stack. When you can tell, you're like, oh, yep, the entire cell structure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kept interrupting you, but I had to pause you there. We can go back to the pragmatic and the idealist. We keep getting up there and then bouncing to something else. But I think we're circulating it pretty neatly here.
Yeah. No, but I was saying, like, I came in touch with like one of these tech companies in like the web 3.0 of like, kind of the new internet, blah, blah, blah. And I was really like, when I came in touch with that field, like my whole body was like, I was really drawn into this, like, really just leaving the feminine and like, okay, how can I perform from like a masculine, like, and I was like, like what just happened in my body? Like it was so strong. And what I realized is that, like, so, you know, the whole notion of like, you know, blockchain and crypto and kind of the same feeling I had when you were explaining UTOK and like going, like, it's so smart, it's so complex, it's so, and it has a brilliant masculine lens and a brilliant masculine architectures in that. And I think there are, I mean, there are many women who can also kind of hold that, but I think there ultimately are, and I don't know if I dare to say this on the internet, but like that there are, again, back to like the layers that you were talking about. So there is something in that second layer that has made like the male psyche, like prone to that. And in the society of like, you know, the industrial capital postmodern society, it's kind of worked for us women to like be like men. I mean, it's making us burn out and we're like having to use adrenaline because we don't have testosterone, but like, the masculinity in this like crypto world is intense. And like just me trying to like be that with my body, like I broke in like 2 seconds. And in a way, maybe that's our savior, because like I don't think women will survive in that world really trying to be men anymore. And that's not what is needed. But like if I can dare and come in with like my full feminine, like and then it can be met by that brilliant masculine architecture. And then also we need, you know, more of the men that are like holding for, you know, all the things we've talked about. But like, that is,
that's where the fusion shit happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And again, it's like, it's not because women can't understand blockchain or can't understand crypto, like they absolutely can. Like it's not, and it's, I'm not saying that, you know, we should be so binary about men and women either. I'm just saying that, like, don't do it out of fear for not fitting in or not being accepted or trying to be someone that you feel that you're actually not. But then just like lean into, and again, from this, like, what are you sourcing, and bring that to the table. That's like what's really needed. And I mean, if it is being like this crypto hacker, then like go for it. That's amazing. But it's this like what felt true to me, that I was trying to be somebody that I'm not, so that I would be included in this like world.
That's what's key. That's right. So give people, we're trying to say, give yourself the permission to recognize that you have potentially different behavioral investment energy patterns in you. And that as social primates, it makes perfect sense. As animals and the primates, sexually reproducing animals and the primates, it makes perfect sense that you would have a masculine and feminine, but a primary, perhaps, way that gives you an integrated wisdom stack. So just check it. And we can be open wherever people land, but just don't be forced out of fear and defensive justification and some ideological trap or any other numbers where you were like, oh, now morally, I know what I have to feel and what my body needs to be. So I'm going to jam my body into a box based on some moralizing suggestion. No, it's got to come from the bottom. and afford that coherent integration across the stack.
And I think it's really difficult for women to do that if they're cut off from their sexuality and their sexual energy. And I think, yeah, like that's the core of it. Like, I think it's so difficult for a woman to find that without the help of this and I mean, in a way, it's the hen or the egg, because I mean, you know, if you're not in touch with your sexual energy, like, are you in touch with yourself?
Totally.
And also, just like, if you know, if you're triggered or if none of this makes sense to you, it's just like, it's like I said again, like, it's amazing. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, levels of complexity and blah 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 blah. Like, that's also good, but it's also just so. And I'm not saying that it's like the complete bliss and like utopia, and like, I'm just saying that I'm so much more alive again. Back to
that. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, and how that's what it is, the life source, and being properly organized in masculine and feminine relationship to that life source. And when you are, that reciprocal synergy, boom. All right, that's great. I really felt that. So I had the sense that that might happen, and voila, that's been really good. I think that's a pretty rich articulation and embodied articulation, and a felt one. Are there things that you other areas, or as you look over the future, or where you feel we're headed, or what you hope to see, or what, you know, I kind of like, as we kind of wrap up there, to kind of get a sense of where people's felt sense of the horizon is, or their hopes or fears, or, you know, kind of messages for people to grab from this and take from it and move forward.
I mean, I think, like, I mean, where I stand with this but what I see is that from again, like, from a feminine lens, and what is needed, like, it's just, we can't have the illusion that, like, that we can know, like, what is needed and how it's done. But something that just, like, feels really true to me is just to, you know, to gather the women, and, like, you know, gather more women and draw in more women and support more women. And again, it's not really about, like, me wanting to support them. It's me wanting to be in places where this, like, feminine life force and sexual energy is more vibrant, because that's what supports me. So, like, in a sense, like, finding the kind of the nodes, or the women who you know, are ready to you know, and it's like, you know, the Marion Woodman quote, like, it's not that we're incapable that most scares us, it's that we're powerful beyond measure. It's like, the women who are most ready to be powerful beyond measure, and to kind of, yeah. And it's not going to be a unified movement, because that's not how the feminine works. It's not going to be like, let's create the life force feminine movement. Like, but like, you know, speaking about this, shining, like, coming from this place myself, is just, that's just what attracts more women. So some kind of, you know, like, organic support of this life force in more women. And you know, specifically, I'm looking towards how this can be awakened in this, I don't want to call it, but, you know, like, the Web 3.0, the world that is where all the money and power and resources are, like, you know, going towards right now. So kind of like, how can that, like, where does that energy want to be awakened, and go where it's easiest and welcomed. And so that's one, from, like, a feminine. And then also start daring to call in the men who are ready to meet us there, and who are Yeah, and there's one really like the thing I want to add that about the masculine, because you know we were talking about this like masculine holding and daring to stand in the void, um and 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 um and what I see with that is that there's a lot of men who are like holding but that are actually disconnected and shut off. So they're like, oh, like, but they're not really here. So it's like it's really inviting, you know, the women to be powerful beyond measure, which is the most vulnerable thing we can do, and then inviting in the men who can meet us in that power, which is the most vulnerable thing a man can do, and also have like deep respect for how like, you know, that it is, you know, not get, you know, angry at anybody for not choosing to do that, but just really inviting that in. So that, because and also, you know, I don't think we don't need all men and women to do this thing. Like we need sufficient amount of women who are sourcing this life force, and sufficient amount of men who are, you know, holding, and, you know, like the shamans, the priests, they're like, oh, those men who are like receiving this life force, and then can direct, you know, the majority of people who are just going to be building the new thing.
Yep. Right. And then distributing care, and then we're completing the cycle.
And then yeah. And that's like in a big arc, and then in each, you know, in each relationship, in each team, in each organization, it's
Right. Well, I like to think of the garden as fractal. Find your local garden and imagine it globally, and then bring it right back to local.
Yeah, exactly like that.
So that's beautiful, and a beautiful tour of your experiences, your narrative, your embodiment, and the message that you offer just resonates profoundly with me. So I really appreciate you sharing it. I hope we can share it out there, and I hope that people will wake up that this is one of the most important and sacred things that our society is essentially blind to. And if we discover that, well, maybe we'll have a wisdom stack that we can actually be genuinely grounded on.
And live our lives alive.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you so much. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. I'd certainly like to circle back in and touch in and see where you are and where all this has taken us in this 3.0, whatever.
Likewise.
All righty.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Take care.